House Oversight Committee is gearing up for the much-anticipated hearing on unidentified flying objects next week on July 26th. And we now know who the three witnesses will be that are testifying.
Here's Congressman Tim Burchett at this morning's press conference talking about the matter.
Wednesday, July 26th at 10 a.m., the House Oversight Committee will hold a hearing on unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs. I prefer to call them UFOs. It will be held by the Oversight Committee on National Security, the Border, and Foreign Affairs. The witnesses will be as follows. David Grusch, he's a decorated former combat officer who served in Afghanistan, and he recently told the world news about his experiences serving on a UAP task force led by the U.S. Navy from 2019 to 2022. Commander David Fravor, he's a former Navy commander who shot the famous Tic Tac video that you've seen. It's on YouTube. It's 60 Minutes did a special on it. He did that in 2004 during a routine training flight over the Pacific Ocean. Ryan Graves, he's a former Navy pilot. He reported multiple UAP encounters during training flights. And the interesting thing about Ryan was that he warned the Pentagon that these encounters are putting our pilots at risk. He attended the hearing held by the House Intelligence Committee last year, but was not allowed to speak. If you all remember, he wasn't even allowed admittance. He had to have someone gave him press credentials to get in, which I thought really stunk. Last year, the House Intelligence Committee held a hearing on UAPs. They brought in some Pentagon bureaucrats who only had two answers to the questions they were asked. I don't know, or that's classified. This hearing is going to be different.
Okay, we have been clamoring for some first-hand witnesses, and 2 out of the 3 of these gentlemen who are going to be testifying say that they have seen things with their own eyes. Specifically, David Fravor, who was one of the witnesses of this TikTok famous UAP video, gave this really remarkable, I mean, he's given this account many times over the years, but in a New York Times write-up of what happened. I mean, the level of detail and the time it seems that he spent looking at this object is more compelling to me than some of the other testimony that we've had.
But so it is compelling, but this is someone who has spoken out before. So we're not hauling new people, and that's my only frustration. These are largely claims that have already been made, so we're going to have them vetted again. But I was hoping for some new footage or testimony.
The claims have been made, but have they been vetted? You know, the fact that this person has been out here talking about it doesn't mean that there's been any accountability, there's been any interest in actually declassifying what the government knows about what he has seen. Or putting any resources into trying to figure out what this stuff is. I mean, look at this. This account, for those, you've probably seen the video. But he was on like air patrol, whatever you call it, and he got a signal to go and check out an unidentified object.
Is that what they call it in Star Trek?
Air patrol. No, there's no air in space, Robby. But so Commander Fravor, this is from the New York Times 2017 report, looked out into the sea. He said it was calm that day, but the waves were breaking over something that was just below the surface. Whatever it was big enough to cause the sea to churn. Hovering 50 feet above the churn was an aircraft of some kind.
We got it on screen,
Whitish, that was about 40 feet long and oval in shape. The craft was jumping around erratically, staying over the wave disturbance, but not moving in any specific direction. The disturbance looked like frothy waves and foam, as if the water were boiling. Commander Fravor began a circular descent to get a closer look, but as he got nearer, the object began ascending toward him. It was almost as if it were coming to meet him halfway, he said. He abandoned his low circular descent and headed straight for the object, but then it peeled away. He said, quote, "It accelerated like nothing I've ever seen." He was, quote, "pretty weirded out."
Yeah, it's very compelling testimony. But again, we've heard it.
Right. But
you just read it.
But here's the thing.
We're just going to hear that again.
He says that his superiors did not investigate further, and he went on with his career, and he deployed to the Gulf and all of this stuff. But that's the piece. His superiors did not investigate further. And I think the question is, if confronted with this testimony in the context of a congressional hearing at a relatively high level, is there going to be pressure that exists now that didn't exist before to get the government to start explaining, the intelligence agencies or whomever, the military, to start offering a more substantive explanation to the public than they had to offer to Fravor and his other pilot that were on the scene that day?
Yeah, that's a good question. But I don't know that that's a question that he can answer. You know, why didn't your superiors look into this, that's not actually something we can get from him. We need a hearing with the superiors. We need to, at some point, hopefully put the actual people in a position who are being accused of covering things up in a position to answer for it.
You can say the same thing about the weaponization of the federal government hearing.
I have said the same thing about the weaponization of the federal government hearing.
All hearings that are useless because you get the two tax guys out there and they say, well, we don't know why Weiss didn't make the decision to investigate this further.
And I've said we have to hear from Weiss. That's an important piece of the puzzle.
Maybe this guy can start to identify who it is that we need to haul before Congress and get some answers.
How about unidentified federal officials? UFOs, unidentified federal officials. That's what I want some answers about.
I love that. Well, expert on the subject, Robert Powell, who is an executive board member at the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, told News Nation now that evidence of UAPs already, told News Nation that this evidence of UAPs already exists. Have a look at that.
We've already seen some good evidence of alien technology. There is radar data and excellent witness data that indicates there are objects that move through our atmosphere with over 100 G-forces of strength. For example, you and I are experiencing 1 G-force as we sit here in our chairs. 100 G-forces is 100 times the force of gravity. At 3 to 4 G-forces, you will begin to pass out. At 15 to 20 G-forces, a aircraft, the structural integrity just comes apart. So to have craft that are moving through the atmosphere, accelerating and decelerating with that level of force is indicative of control by some intelligence that's well beyond us.
And the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, added an amendment in the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act that would increase transparency about UAPs. Here he is speaking about it on the Senate floor. Let's watch.
My amendment will require the National Archive and Records Administration to create a collection of records from across government agencies that can be declassified for the public's use, similar to the approach used in 1992 with the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act. These records will carry a presumption of immediate disclosure, which means they can only remain classified with good reason.
I mean, the JFK example isn't exactly inspiring since we're still having fights about releasing that information.
They barely did a good enough job about bringing that out there. Yeah, it's the knee-jerk secrecy of the federal government, which is a huge problem no matter what the issue is, even if it's, something of...
But what if it's not knee-jerk here? What if the problem here is that it's not
they want to keep something actually secret about aliens?
Well, no. No, I was going to say, what if it isn't aliens? What if it is either competitor or technology that they don't want to acknowledge exists, or that we have technology that we don't want to disclose?
I mean, that's a very logical possibility, and they should have to disclose it, and it's hard to do so. You see how they treat whistleblowers, how both administrations treat whistleblowers.
I mean, Robby, we sit here days before Oppenheimer airs, and I have very mixed feelings about making this argument given the horrific implications of having developed atomic nuclear bombs. However, the argument goes that we needed to keep it a secret that we had this technology, that, it from a negotiation perspective and from a kind of global peace negotiation standpoint, it is good to have some cards that haven't been disclosed about what you're able to do if it really goes down, if the proverbial caca hits the fan. Is there a conceivable, genuine national security interest in not disclosing that we have aircraft that can withstand all of this G-force or something like that?
Well, from a deterrence perspective, I mean, think of Dr. Strangelove, right? If you have this powerful weapon that should act as a deterrent, you need everyone to know that you have it, or else they're...
Sure, when it's ready.
Well, when it's ready, yeah.
And maybe that's what's going on here. That it's not ready for prime time, but they're out here testing these kinds of crafts.
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't want to acknowledge that, again, these aren't our crafts, and they don't want to stoke a public panic about how China or whomever is so much more technologically advanced.
I mean, it's a boy who cried wolf problem. They're so secretive about so many things that if they had a really important secret that it actually is important, that they should keep it secret. But I don't trust them anymore. I don't trust them at all. That this is I trust you that you wouldn't. You really need to keep the secret. No, I'm not there.
I will also say, and this is just me doing sci-fi conjecture, that when you read what David Fravor describes as the ship meeting him halfway, coming toward him, almost in this pantomime of like an animalistic curiosity, like a deer approaching you in the woods. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like the behavior of an enemy combatant ship or even a domestic technology where you would think, oh, this is supposed to be a secret, let me run away. Let me just run away, let me run away. That, it feels like something else, the way it's been described.
Have you heard of the Lonnie Zamora case?
I don't think so.
This is a famous potential alien sighting incident in, just Googled it, New Mexico. I remember reading about this one. This guy was driving, and a craft flew over him, like very low overhead, crashed or landed somewhere off the highway. I think he got out of his car, he went to where it was, and he saw in the distance 2 little aliens get out of it, and then eventually take off, and like the area there was fused, like it looked like the ground had been, like jets had hit it and it had almost hardened into glass or something. And a bunch of other people saw the same craft, or called in that they saw the same craft. And the Project Blue Book, that was the alien investigation thing, they had absolutely no explanation for it. He was completely credible. They had no reason to think he would make it up. And there was corroborating sightings, and they just have no clue what it was. Interesting. That's what it reminded me of, the way the craft moved from that description. It made me recall that incident. Lonnie Zamora incident. Look it up on Wikipedia.
I'm looking forward to the 26th. We'll have more about that for you when it happens, about that hearing. Stay around for more Rising.